Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're doing what we love best, really, taking a really cutting-edge piece of tech, getting right into it, and figuring out what makes it tick.
Yeah.
So today's deep dive, it's the ROG Astral GeForce RTX 5090 OC, the 32 gig GDDR7 version.
A big one.
Exactly. And our mission here isn't just, reading off a spec sheet. It's about understanding what flagship really means.
Right.
What makes something genuinely uncompromising in high-performance computing, and, crucially, what that actually means for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this piece of hardware, it really shows the incredible lengths manufacturers go to now.
To get that top-tier performance.
For gamers, creators, enthusiasts, everyone who wants the best.
Yeah.
So we'll dig into what all that, advanced engineering and design actually translates to for your experience.
Okay, let's dive straight in then. The unboxing. The sources say it hits you immediately, it's substantial in weight and heft. A real beast. Now, heavy could just mean awkward, right? But what does that physical presence really signal about the card, even before you plug it in?
Well, it's interesting. That weight, it's not just weight for its own sake. It's hinting strongly at the power inside.
Okay.
And the cooling needed for that power. You see this matte black shroud, subtle RGB. It feels sophisticated.
Right.
It's designed to look good, sure, but also to fit into a serious gaming rig or workstation without being too flashy. It basically says ASUS hasn't cut any corners here.
And it's not just hefty, there's this mention of utilitarian elegance. Every curve, every angle is apparently for airflow, no extra bits just for show. That sounds very deliberate, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It connects directly to how it fits and how easy it is to install, despite its size. Those considerable dimensions mean a solid build.
Right.
You've got sturdy PCIe 5.0 support, clearly marked power inputs, 3 8-pins needed here.
3.
Yeah. It ensures it locks in firmly, which gives you confidence, that it's ready for heavy use, heavy overclocking right from the start.
Okay, so once it's installed, we get to the engineering inside, especially the cooling. They mention a 4-fan Axial tech design. What's special about that specific approach? How does it manage the heat?
So each of those 4 fans, they're Axial tech, and they're very precisely engineered. They're designed to push air directly through this huge heat sink assembly underneath.
Okay.
And there's a patented vapor chamber in there, too. It's not just about brute force air movement. It's about finding this balance between cooling efficiency and noise.
The noise level. That's always a factor.
Exactly. And the reports say that even under heavy load, the noise is, well, pretty subdued, like a gentle hum, not a jet engine. It's about precise engineering for performance without driving you crazy with noise.
And what about the reinforced backplate? Is that just for looks, or does it actually do something important?
Oh, it's critical. It does 2 main things, really. First, structural rigidity. A big, heavy card like this could potentially flex the PCB, the main circuit board.
Right, bend it slightly.
Exactly, which you definitely don't want. That can cause problems long term, so the backplate prevents that flex. Second, it actually acts as a passive heat spreader.
So it helps with cooling, too.
It draws heat away from the back of the PCB. And then you've got that vapor chamber sitting right on the GPU die itself, pulling heat away really quickly.
And speaking of cooling performance, the temperature figures mentioned are, well, quite impressive. Mid-60s Celsius, peaking low 70s, even in a warm room like 25 degrees C.
Yeah.
For a top-end card, hitting those numbers, what does that really tell us about ASUS's thermal design?
It tells us they've really nailed the thermal management. It's not just one thing, it's the combination. How those Axial tech fans direct the air, the sheer mass of the heatsink, that efficient vapor chamber, it all works together.
To prevent hot spots.
Precisely. Hotspots are minimized. It means the card can sustain its peak performance for longer stretches without throttling down due to heat. That's a key differentiator, beyond just looking at peak FPS. It also impacts stability and potentially how long the card lasts.
Right, makes sense. Okay, let's shift focus to why people buy these things. The raw power, the performance. We're hearing about NVIDIA's GDDR7 memory, an impressive 610 megahertz boost clock right out of the box. What does that mean in practical terms for gaming, for rendering?
Well, those numbers, they definitely blow past the previous generation in benchmarks. But the real story is gaming performance.
Yeah.
We're talking about games like Cyberpunk 2077,
Right.
Horizon Forbidden West, running incredibly smoothly at 4K.
With ray tracing on.
With ray tracing enabled, yeah. And maintaining frame rates solidly above 60 frames per second, even when you crank all the settings up to max.
Wow.
And just as important, maybe even more so, are the frame times. the time taken for each frame to render, they're reported as being remarkably consistent.
Which means less stuttering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fewer of those annoying micro stutters.
Yeah.
You get a much smoother, more fluid experience overall, not just a high average number.
And for the enthusiasts, the tweakers out there, is there room to push it further? The review mentions additional headroom.
Oh, definitely. The factory overclock is already pretty good, gives you a nice boost. But yeah, for people who like to tinker, you can use ASUS's software, Armoury Crate, to push the core and memory frequencies even higher.
And the cooling can handle it.
That's the key. That robust cooling solution we talked about keeps the temperatures well under control, even apparently when pushing past 2700 megahertz.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was quite something. And the voltage tuning is reportedly quite forgiving too, letting you find stable custom settings to squeeze out that last bit of performance.
Okay, let's circle back to something you touched on, the quiet giant idea. It's praised for its acoustics, the semi-passive mode. I definitely remember older high-end cards sounding like vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, those days.
So how big a deal is this quiet operation for everyday use, especially if your PC isn't just for gaming, maybe for work or streaming?
It's a massive quality of life improvement. Honestly, transformative for some setups.
Yeah.
That semi-passive mode means the fans just stop. Completely silent when you're just idling, browsing the web, watching videos, no constant low hum. Then, even when you're gaming hard, it's described as more like a soft whoosh, not an annoying drone.
That sounds nice.
It really is. If you stream or create content or even just share an office space, having that quiet operation is, well, it's a godsend. You can actually forget the card is there during normal use. A subtle thing, but really significant.
Okay, beyond the power and the quiet, what about just practical stuff? Connectivity. How does it handle modern displays, and is it ready for what's coming next?
Good question. That's about future-proofing, right?
Yeah.
So connectivity is pretty comprehensive. You have 2 HDMI 2.1B ports.
2 HDMI.
And 3 DisplayPort 2.1B outputs. The HDMI ports support things like VR variable refresh rate and ALM auto low latency mode.
For smoother gaming on compatible TVs and monitors.
Exactly. More responsive feel. And DisplayPort 2.1B is the really big deal here. It offers huge bandwidth, up to 70 GBps.
Wow, what does that enable?
It means you can run uncompressed 8K at 60 Hz or 4K at a whopping 240 Hz. Perfect for high-end gaming monitors, ultra-wides, and definitely helps future-proof your setup for displays that aren't even common yet.
And are there any other little features like quality of life things built in?
Yeah, a few nice touches. There's a dedicated dual BIOS switch.
What's that for?
Lets you flick between a standard performance mode and a dedicated quiet mode, maybe with slightly lower clocks but even quieter fans, without needing software or restarting.
Handy.
Very. There's also an LED strip for diagnostics. It can flash codes if there's an installation problem or a power delivery issue. Super helpful when troubleshooting.
Oh yeah, that could save some headaches.
Definitely. And of course, ASUS Aura Sync for RGB lighting, so you can sync it up with your motherboard, RAM, fans, all that, if you're into the coordinated lighting look.
Right. Okay, with all this power, even with the efficiency claims, I have to ask about the power draw. What are the actual numbers, and what kind of power supply unit, or PSU, are we talking about needing for this beast?
Yeah, it's powerful, but surprisingly, maybe not insanely power-hungry compared to its performance. Under typical gaming loads, the reports suggest around 350 watts.
Okay, that's less than I might have guessed.
It climbs higher in really heavy synthetic benchmarks, maybe around 420 watts.
Yeah.
But for stability, and especially if you want to overclock it yourself, you'll want a good quality power supply. At least 850 watts is the recommendation, and make sure it has good, stable power delivery on the rails. Don't skimp on the PSU with a card like this.
Good advice. And managing all this, the clocks, the fans, the RGB, what software tools does ASUS provide? Are they easy to use?
Yeah, they offer a couple of options. There's Armoury Crate, which is kind of their main hub software now.
Yeah.
It gives you pretty intuitive control over fan curves, setting power limits, adjusting the RGB lighting. It's designed to be fairly user-friendly for most people.
And for the hardcore tweakers.
For them, there's GPU Tweak 2. That's the more granular tool. It lets you dive deeper into voltage adjustments, fine-tuning frequencies, really getting into the nitty-gritty to extract maximum performance. So options for both casual users and enthusiasts.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, the ROG Astral RTX 5090 OC really does sound like a masterpiece of GPU engineering, doesn't it?
It certainly seems that way from the reviews, yeah.
You've got exceptional performance right out of the box, fantastic cooling that keeps it quiet, and a solid set of features. It feels like that premium price tag is sort of justified by the sheer capability and maybe the future-proofing it offers.
I think that's the argument, yes. If you absolutely need the best possible visual fidelity, the highest sustained performance, and you don't want to compromise, then this card seems to be positioned as the absolute peak right now.
Just make sure you've got the space in your case for it.
Yes, that too.
And a beefy enough power supply. Get those sorted, and it sounds like you're set for top-tier gaming and creative work for quite some time.
Indeed. Which does make you wonder, though. Once you reach this kind of peak performance, what's actually next? What becomes the new frontier for graphics cards? And how does that change what we even mean by unrivaled visual fidelity? Something to think about.